Hola everyone, ¿cómo estás? So welcome back to the podcast. Today's podcast, we're going to cover one of the most important things I've ever decided to do in my whole life, which is take on extreme physical challenges. These extreme physical challenges that I've decided to take on, and that Cian decided to take on, and that many other men that I really respect and admire, and girls, of course, women I really respect and admire, have completely changed our lives. They've transformed the way we think, the way we behave, the way we see food, the way we see sleep, the way we see exercise, the way we see learning and continuous improvement. They couldn't have had a bigger impact on who we are as people. And this podcast is to explore the main physical challenge that Cian took on, which is in 2018 he became the Irish Natural Bodybuilding Champion. He was the overall winner, so that means the best natural bodybuilder in the whole country, and he went to the World Championships in Los Angeles. Me and Dave joined him and his coach Declan Clear. We went out to Los Angeles where he competed in the World Natural Bodybuilding Championships, and his prep was extreme in every way you can imagine. So not that he did anything you wouldn't have heard of before, but he just did it so regimentally and to such an extreme level. So he was in the calorie deficit for the guts of 7-8 months, and the hunger was at such a level that he lost really his personality for the last 2-3 months. He could barely talk, he could barely function outside of his just normal daily routine. There was no energy left. Everything was focused on his goal, and it was a complete obsession to get to a level of consistency, or relentless consistency as he says himself, so that his body could look a certain way while still being extremely strong relative to his body weight. So that's what Cian's extreme physical challenge was. While he's done other ones, other preps, strength feats, that for him was definitely his most extreme challenge. For me, I think maybe the bodybuilding was an extreme physical challenge. I did 3 bodybuilding shows, but definitely the 100-kilometer ultra marathon, when I became the first person to run the width of Mayo, was my most extreme physical challenge. It was very short-lived. It was all done in 12 weeks. The day itself was only one day. It wasn't like a prep where it's month after month after month. So I took on that challenge, and it completely changed me as a person. It changed my perspective on many different things, helped me raise money for charity, but it tested my body and my mind in a way that I've never been tested before, and I wonder will I ever be tested again, especially in the physical way. Now, I've went through other things mentally in my life that have been far tougher than anything I've done physically, but as a physical challenge, as something I'm picking and saying, okay, I want to do this and I want to try and complete this, that 100-kilometer ultra marathon was definitely the toughest. So in today's podcast, you're going to get tons of inspiration to try and do something like this yourself. You're going to get tons of information on how to do these things, whether it's run your first marathon, run your first ultra marathon, do your first bodybuilding show, get as lean as possible, build muscle, get as strong as possible, what you should do with your diet. You're going to get tons of applicable information for taking on an extreme physical challenge. And the key here is extreme. A lot of personal training is about moderation, it's about continuity, it's about doing things that are sustainable. These are extreme challenges. You're not going to be running an ultra marathon every week, or you're not going to be getting in the shape for a bodybuilding show every week or every year even. So these are extreme challenges, and I think you can take a lot of inspiration, but also a lot of knowledge and a lot of, like I said, applicable information from what we talk about in this podcast. So without any further ado, that'll do for me, and we can jump straight into the podcast. But before we go into that, I'm just going to remind you that my online coaching is going from strength to strength, which I'm super happy about. And I'm extremely thankful to everyone who listens to this podcast. Yeah, the people who follow me on Instagram, follow me on TikTok, Twitter, and all the other social media platforms, here on YouTube, and you're the ones who are becoming my clients. And I'm so proud of my clients, the results they achieve. I know that I go above and beyond what other online coaches offer in terms of 2 calls a week, constant online support, videos of each exercise, deep program explanations, book recommendations, just psychology and mindset coaching. I do everything I possibly can to help my clients get the results, and that's why they get the incredible results that they do. So if you'd want to be part of that, you have 2 days left to sign up at a reduced price before prices increase in September 2023. After that, the prices will be a little bit higher. But if you want to get a consultation in before then, you want to listen to this podcast and say, I'm ready to do it, I'm ready to jump into some physical challenge, then simply message me after you hear this and we'll set up a consultation. We'll see where I can take you before 2024, which is not that long away. So without any further ado, let's jump into today's podcast, Extreme Physical Challenges with Cian Brennan. Okay. 3, 2, 1, here we go. Okay, everybody. Today we're going to be covering and getting into the nuts and bolts a little bit more. What we're going to be covering today is in 2017.
The penultimate year is 2018.
In 2018, Cian did a series of bodybuilding shows, not just one, and got into the best shape of his life and competed at the World Natural Bodybuilding Championships in Los Angeles, and he won the Irish Natural Bodybuilding Championships. He won that overall, so best bodybuilder in the whole competition on the day. And last year I ran a 60-mile ultramarathon. It was the penultimate for me, but I ran 3 marathons in 3 weeks in preparation for that. And in a short 12-week period, I went from having never ran longer than a 5k or 10k and only done like 2 or 3 of them to running 60 miles the width of Mayo. That's exactly what people are going to be looking to do, is challenge themselves physically and push themselves to a new level of physical accomplishment, whether that's getting leaner than ever, stronger than ever, more muscle than ever, running farther than ever, thriving and succeeding in their sport, getting into their best form ever, which is, a real buzz as good as any. And I've never really sat down with a client in a consultation and I ask this question every single time, Cian, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
I say, what's the dream end result? What's the goal here? Why are we trying to do what we're trying to do? Whether they're preparing for sport, lose body fat, whatever else. And it doesn't matter whether they're middle-aged woman, teenage boy, career, professional. Every one of them brings up something mental. So even though they're trying to change the physical, that's what they're paying me for or hiring me for, every one of them says, Joe, I've had a couple of kids and I just think it's time to prioritize my own health, or I haven't been feeling good lately. Mm-hmm. My mental health hasn't been great and I just think it's time I need to get in shape, or I've never been able to look at myself confidently in the mirror, So let's get into, without further ado, let's get into what we're actually going to talk about, which is how did it all start for you and your incredible journey on that bodybuilding.
Okay, so I guess it goes back to 2014. That was the beginning.
Yes.
A very good friend of mine, Adam Murphy, who I played soccer with throughout my whole career, from being a young lad to when I stopped playing when I was 19. Also, we grew up in the same estate, so we were very good friends outside of that. But he went and did a natural bodybuilding show in 2014.
I remember. Before
it was the thing to do. Mm-hmm. It was a very, 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 very strange thing to do back then, especially.
Close to unheard of. It was creeping in a little bit, but it was definitely.
Yeah, it was close to unheard of. Yeah, it was. So he went down to Cork and did the natural bodybuilding show, competed as a teen, and I went down just to support him as his best friend and confidant. So I went down with him, and I actually had an encounter down there that it's what spiraled off the inclination or the thought of even ever competing. So I was wearing one of these sleeveless physique hoodies. I don't know if you remember them.
I remember them.
I was wearing
physique apparel, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember them. Yeah. Gymshark was just getting good.
Yeah, physique was like the shit.
It was
at that time. Mm-hmm. But I was going to an elevator.
Machine fitness was
another one. Yeah, lovely machine fitness. But I was getting into the elevator and some dude stopped me he said to me as I was in there, he goes, he was like, what category are you competing in today? And I was like, no, I'm not competing, man. I'm just here with my friends supporting him.
That's a Cork accent, the bad Cork accent.
Yeah, he was from Cork. And so maybe I thought about it after, and I was like, I was just down here to support him with his sleeveless on, not in shape or anything, not that lean or anything, but he obviously thought something of me, and like, geez, this guy looks like he's competing to some extent. So when I heard that, and then I had the whole experience of the day, and I thought, to be honest with you, I thought it was a bit of a freak show, the whole thing. I thought
which bodybuilding shows are, to an extent, they are freak shows.
Yeah.
And I've done a few now, and I like them, but they definitely are strange, esoteric things to do.
Yeah, they were, and I was a bit taken aback by that, but I was also a little bit fascinated by it. I was like, wow, okay. So I suppose between him complimenting me and then seeing what was going on down there, and then finishing soccer around that time, and not really having anything competitive to do, like being used to playing team sports for years, I had felt like I'd lost some sort of competitive edge. So that was that got me thinking. And then fast forward to 2016, so I decided after that I'd take a year out just to build myself up in terms of like an off season and improve my physique somewhat to whatever I could.
And where did you learn about the off season?
I started watching like a lot of YouTube content, and about like, I got interested in just the sport of bodybuilding. Like I'd always had a semi interest from like Arnold and pumping iron.
Yes.
That was kind of like, my dad showed me that when I was pretty young, and I always thought that was very cool. But then
that's interesting.
Yeah, he did. He was a big cultural movie back when he was younger. So
I had never came across pumping iron. I'd obviously came across Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I'd never came across pumping iron until I was lifting weights a few years.
So I'd known about the subculture of bodybuilding, but after I went down to that show, I just started taking an interest like anything. I started looking up on YouTube, following different guys on social media, and just, I suppose that's where you learn some of the lingo and stuff about like an off season, like what does that mean, or an improvement season, where you just like get strong, build muscle, bring up your weak body parts, and to do that you need to be eating a lot of food and training your ass off. So I decided that at that point in 2014 that I didn't have enough development in my physique to go and compete and be competitive at least. This was me being pretty rational. I had a couple of years training under my belt, and I still felt like I should train more.
Which is strange in the bodybuilding community. Well, in any competitive sport, is that bit of being able to be rational and saying, okay, I'm actually not ready for this yet. I probably am not as good as I should be yet.
Yeah.
That bit of being able to be rational like that is rare.
Yeah, it's probably that delayed gratification thing as well, where I could have went the next year but I was like, no, I need more time than that, and I was okay with that, because I wanted to go in and make an impression on my first year as well. That was just, I wasn't there to, as what's the very safe
to take part, take over.
So yeah, that's how I felt. So anyway, fast forward to 2016, and I did my first show, the Natural Bodybuilding NBFI, Natural Bodybuilding Federation of Ireland. It's down in Cork, as it always is. I was in the junior category, and I came third in my first year, which is, I deserved third. I didn't deserve any better. I was lean, but I had an online coach who prepped me for it. I spoke about him in the other one, and it just wasn't the best. It wasn't the best setup for the day around the show, because he wasn't physically there to see me. So everything was, he kind of piqued me, gave me a whole protocol based off pictures, and yeah, it just wasn't ideal. So I definitely didn't come in looking as good as I possibly could have, but to be honest, I still didn't deserve to win that or anything. Probably not even second place. So I got third place, and I was okay with that. I did my first ever photo shoot after that as well with Sean Barry.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah.
I followed you on the photo shoots, you and Biggie.
Yeah.
I followed you and Biggie on the bodybuilding competitions.
Yeah.
No, you were a lot younger than me.
Yeah, I was in 2016, that was 6 years ago. I was 21 when I did my first one. So I did that. I didn't do any of the shows that year. I just left at that one, and then I was adamant to go back in 2017, do the same show, and to win it. I felt like, okay, I came third this year, it's my first year, let me get 6 months of an off season of improving. I hired a new coach, Brian Hickey from Dublin, and a slightly different approach to things, but the reason why I changed really was because I could physically go and see Brian up in Dublin.
Yes.
So I go and check in with him every in my off season, not that frequently, but in prep, when prep would start, I'd be up to him every like 2 weeks.
I remember that, yeah. Every 2 weeks, Saturday mornings up to Dublin.
Yeah, I drive up. I used to love it. I used to just getting away and bring my meals with me.
Getting out of the trench.
Yeah, and getting into the Coliseum gym after. Yeah, that was
out of the trench and into the Coliseum.
Into the Coliseum, yeah, for warfare. It's the name of the gym, by the way. That was training up there. But
great gym in Dublin.
Yeah. So anyway, prepped with him. Went through the whole. We won't get into nuts and bolts, but that year I came second. So I came second in the junior category, same competition, and I felt at the time I might have been a bit hard done by, but when I look back, it was probably the result that I deserved, because again I'd gotten very lean, but the fucking peaking protocol, it was fucked up. Basically, I could have came in looking leaner, but certain stuff.
Yes,
this is
you
certain.
cut salt and water.
Yes.
Cut salt and water. The dangers of it. Keep things simple.
Yeah.
But anyway, for you, it's hard to say that. Okay, I felt like I should have done a bit better, and maybe you could have. But like from so many people, it was very, very. I'd say 50-50 on who won that competition. Definitely what made it for the guy you were competing against was he was just leaner.
Yeah.
He just looked leaner.
Yeah.
But as far as an aesthetic or balanced physique, there's no doubt your physique looked more aesthetically pleasing and more balanced, and you had more muscle mass.
Yeah.
So I know that's hard for you to say, because sour grapes is very common as well in bodybuilding, and the last thing you want to do is say that. But that's what generally, I was there on the day, that's what everyone felt.
Yeah.
He was leaner, but
and that's why he won, because he was those natural shows the condition, which means
it's who's the leanest competition, basically.
It is. They don't necessarily, the importance of, like you were saying, balance, symmetry, how aesthetic you look, how much muscle mass you have. If you're leaner than the other guy, you'll generally take it. And look, I did know that going in as well, so like,
did you? Yeah.
I knew natural shows were about condition. It's just we didn't get peeled enough, and that was it.
And when we say peeled enough here, you were still extremely lean.
Yeah.
And to diet down and go through that pain of a prep, and the delayed gratification, constantly being hungry, constantly being a bit tired, a bit jaded, and then coming in on show day and just realise, okay, I didn't do enough. Not because I wasn't willing to do enough, but just because the calories weren't dropped enough, or the cardio wasn't put on. It's very difficult. It's not because you cheated on your diet and you weren't willing to do it, it's just you could have went a bit harder and the brakes were held, or the handbrake was held a bit more. Yeah,
that was definitely, that was frustrating. And the other thing was that considering the shape that I was in, by the way that we kind of fucked up the peak, I could have probably looked an extra 2% better on the day, but I didn't. But anyway, it happened, and I had to just, get over it, move on. I actually did 2 more shows that year in like untested federations, just because I was in shape. And I placed in one of them and didn't place in the other one. But I just did them because I wanted to get more experience while I was in shape, because I felt like the year before that I'd spent all that time getting in shape, and then I just did one show and that was it. So that was one thing I did differently. And then fast forward to 2018, I was going to be a junior for one last year, which is under 24, and I decided that I'd come third my first year, second in my second year. I was like, third time lucky, I'm going to win this time.
Yes.
And go and compete to win the Irish one. So I went. We started. Remember the YouTube? That's why I call it the YouTube series. Third time lucky. Yeah, and went to prep for that show. That was a gruesome prep, and competed. I won the junior category finally for the first time, and then I went on. Everyone who wins basically their category that day, whether it's junior, teenager, under 70 kg, under 65, masters, or under 40s, all the different winners of each category, they all go in to compete against each other in the overall. So I obviously won mine, went into the overall, and I won the overall, which meant that I was the best natural bodybuilder in Ireland that year. And yeah, that was, to be honest, just to talk about my category, like, there was only fucking 2 of us in my category in the junior.
Yes.
Which I was like, I was like I only won, but there's just two of us. Like I didn't feel very satisfied at all. I remember feeling quite
Anticlimax.
Exactly. It was very anticlimactic. When we all went for food after, and I just didn't. I had my own food, but we all went for burgers and shit. And I just remember just talking to my dad down in the bathroom, and he was just like, he said something to me, and it kind of helped me a little bit. He's like, yeah, there may have been only two of you on stage today. He goes, think about all the other people who were planning on doing it, or who didn't do it, or who didn't make it to the stage. And I was like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. But I still felt,
of course,
quite anticlimactic. But anyway, went back for the night show, and then once I won the overall, and I feel like it solidified like my hard work, and it actually meant something, because I bet the winner of each other category, and there was some tough competition there.
Exactly, yeah. So you went up on stage. Most people listening to this won't be familiar with bodybuilding competitions, but when you win each category, then the winners of each category go through to a final, and who's ever the best bodybuilder on the day, and that's what you won that day.
Mm-hmm.
But just to bring it back, when it's only you versus that other guy.
Yep.
A big theme in fitness is the importance of the mindset of it's you versus you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in bodybuilding, but it's also for anything. Is if you want to achieve the best possible amount of progress, or the most out of yourself, you want to squeeze every bit of potential from yourself, you just have to stop comparing yourself to others, or you're gonna be a loser.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're going to have a loser mentality. You're constantly going to be looking at what everyone else is doing, looking over your shoulder, and it's going to cloud your judgment for getting the best out of yourself and out of your own potential. And I think it's actually on this t-shirt, you know, the UVU. So Adi Gillespie is one of my favourite fitness influencers, and that's the name of his clothing brand, is UVU. And it's such an important mindset to get in. It doesn't matter if you're trying to run a marathon. If you compare yourself to
Mo
Farah and the boys, to any professional runner, to any runner on Instagram, you're just going to feel like I'm constantly losing all the time because I'm twice as slow as these guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're trying to build muscle and you're comparing yourself to, never mind an IFBB pro, you're comparing yourself to the strongest guy in the town, you're going to constantly feel like a loser who's small and weak.
Mm-hmm.
You know, on the grand scheme of things, you're never going to be the strongest. You're never going to be the fastest. You're never going to be, you know, the best footballer, or, you know, the top. What you have to always be looking for is a constant bit of incremental progress that allows you to beat your old self and get to the next level. And bodybuilding, not always, but it does have a brilliant way of teaching that.
Yeah. One of the things that a lot of people focus on, and I certainly focused on, is what you're doing if you're competing in multiple shows over the course of a few seasons. Is you hear this phrase being thrown around a lot, but you're trying to bring a better package.
Yeah.
So each year the focus is on like trying to bring a better package than you did the year before, or 2 years before, whatever it was. So that means it could be you want your quads to be bigger, or a bigger quad sweep, or you need your lats to be wider, or your shoulders to be more capped, or your chest to be more full, or whatever the case is. So it's actually that bodybuilding for me kind of started out as like I use it to replace the competitive edge that I had, that I lost from stopping to play soccer. But I also viewed it as well as some sort of like art, because essentially you're trying to like sculpt your physique into a way, you know, and you're trying to just year after year, week after week, month after month, you're just trying to chisel away and make it look a certain way.
Yes.
So that was something that appealed to me. And one thing as well that I don't know, I probably should need to think about it a little bit more, but one thing that I didn't do a lot of, to be honest, was I never really compared myself to other people. I wouldn't have any interest in like looking up who was going to be against me and everything, because I just focused on myself, and I knew that if I could bring a better version of myself and worked harder than I did the year before, then, you know, would it be good enough to win? I believed that it would. But even if it wasn't, for me, that was still progress.
Yes.
Because I came with a better version, 2.0, 3.0. I did.
To be the best you can possibly be, you know, which is a very, very dynamic concept. Because the best you can possibly be not only is it different from year to year, it's also different week to week. Let's say you're a footballer and you have 20 games in the season, and 5 weeks in, you get a bad strain in your hamstring and you miss the next 5 weeks. Then if you're rating the best you can possibly be on your best performance ever on the first game back, you're going to be bitterly disappointed. You just have to be the best you can possibly be on that given day, even if you're only getting 15 minutes back on the pitch and you're fighting for your position back. It's very, very dynamic week to week, and it takes a lot of self-awareness to actually see and realize what is the best I can be for this game. What is the best I can be for this run? So when I was doing my marathons, I came to this because I was doing the 3 marathons in 3 weeks. I knew if I was going to run 60 miles in a day, I was going to have to be able to put consecutive marathons back to back. And I did that 3 marathons in 3 weeks. The second week, I did not want to run at all. I ran my first marathon. Week 2, I'm getting up. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. Mayo Gaels have training at 11. I have to get this marathon done before 11, get home for something to eat, so run to nearly Knockmore, and then I have to train Mayo Gaels. But I also had a bad night's sleep and I had a bit of a cold. My nose was a bit blocked. It's not badly sick, but when you just don't feel good. Bad sleep, bit of a cold, mindset was not good. The best I could possibly be there was just get it done, just finish it, just put one foot in front of the other and finish the fucking thing. And you have to be willing sometimes not to have this perfectionistic mindset where, I have to be perfect, I have to be better, this is shite compared to what I did the last day. And I was very guilty of that for many times in the past, and definitely part of my maturity in training was realizing, just one foot in front of the other, one session at a time, one day at a time, and the whole thing comes together a lot easier that incremental way than it does looking at this, oh my god, he's doing this and I'm not as good. I ran this the last time and I'm not as good. I lifted this heavy the last day and I can only do 10 kg less today.
Yeah, well, that's the thing as well. There's a lot of external factors, and sometimes I'm sure you have to explain this to clients. If they come for a session and it's like their second session of the week or the third session of the week, and they're like, why the fuck do I feel weaker today? Or why I wasn't able to, I did 4 chin-ups the last day, I only do 3 today. But there's so many, you have to explain to them, there's so many external factors that are at play. Like you said there, your sleep, how much you were hydrated, what you ate the night before, how stressed you were, all those different factors. And the point you made there is important because unless you're an absolute robot and you've all those boxes ticked off 100% of the time, all the time, which 99% of people don't, then you have to realize that not every session is going to be perfect, or whatever it is. Not every training session, not every football session, not every run session is going to be perfect. But over a period of time, if you can get it 80% or 90% of the way there, similar to the diet, then you're going to, over a long period of time, make progress rather than comparing yourself to not being perfect every time. I think it's very, very important.
Yes, and that over a period of time mindset, it's atomic habits in action, really, because if you can get into the mindset that this day doesn't have to be perfect, I just have to get it done, it takes so much pressure off. Instead of going into the gym in a bad mood because I have only 45 minutes to train, I need a fucking hour, and just get it done. Just do what you can while you can with whatever you have. Don't let what you can't do interfere with what you can. Okay, your food, you're out for the day, you're at some family event and you thought your food would be better, you thought you'd be back on time. Just put one foot in front of the other. Just make sure you get the least worst option. You don't say fuck it and just throw everything out the window. You just get whatever session done that you can. It's better than nothing. Whatever run done you can, it's better than nothing. You might not get all your steps or your cardio, but you get most of it done. And I think 90% of the time you can actually get very, very close to optimal just by having that mindset.
Of course. Would you say that your approach has changed with that over the years?
So much. I used to be so much more of a perfectionist. Much
with
more.
Yourself.
And the perfectionist thing, all it is really, all it is, it's a few things, but all it is really is this, it's kind of a scapegoat. You know, I would have done it, but I couldn't do it perfect, so now I'm not going to bother to do it. You know, that is not how successful people in any realm behave or think. They're not perfectionists at all. They're experts at getting the job done. Like the phrase, done is better than perfect, because perfect doesn't exist. So just get it done in whatever way you can. It doesn't mean you want to be sloppy, or it doesn't mean you want to be careless. It just means those inevitable life problems that crop up day to day, you don't let them interfere with the process of getting the task done. And it might seem the road while you're on it is very windy, and the road looking backwards is very straight. So sometimes you look back, you might see someone else's journey or your own journey, and you'll be like, oh my god, you know, I did this and then I did that, and so when you're on it, you just cannot afford to focus on any more than the next running session, the next one.
Yeah, if you do, you're going to be overwhelmed.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. So I'll talk about how I got started on mine.
Yeah,
how we got started before we go into the nuts and bolts of the details. So I got started on my running challenge because I did a cut last year, did a photo shoot with Daniel James, one of my favourite photographers. Wanted to do a cut with him, or a photo shoot with him for years. Photo shoot was incredible. It was like some of my favourite shots I've ever got.
Where was that again? Was it London?
It was in London, yeah, of my own physique, and I was just so happy with it. But at the end of it, I was thinking to myself, do I want to do this again? Do I want to go back to the drawing board, do a bit of a cut, do a bit of a bulk? It's a long, arduous process, and at this stage, you know, what was I going to gain? A couple of pounds of muscle. My physique wasn't going to look all that great with 3 or 4 months bulking.
Yeah.
It was going to need 12, 18 months, 2 years bulking. Was I willing to do that? Absolutely not. I'm not at this stage. My willing to go into a calorie surplus for 2 years. You know?
Yeah, we've seen
Especially after that. I'll get some photos up of that sloppy.
Oh, we've got some
5,000 calories, 6 meals a day, enough rice to feed a small Chinese village. But if I wasn't willing to go back into the bulking cycle, so I was like, well, what about a different challenge? And I've been following a few influencers. I follow a lot of fashion influencers because I love clothes, and they're like models, equivalent of Brown Thomas or whatever else. So, and they put up very good stuff on their workouts, but their workouts are far more like less structured, and they just seemed a bit more fun. They weren't quite CrossFit, they weren't quite bodybuilding, they weren't quite endurance run. They were kind of a mixture of everything. So like hitch sessions, and they do yoga every now and then they go for a 10-mile run, and I was like, that just appeals to me. So I've never had the deep love of bodybuilding that you and Dave have had. And even Dave doesn't love it as much as you. You know, I wanted to compete to kind of see, okay, what would I look like? I never had any real expectations of winning. Of course, I tried my best to win and bring my best package.
Of course, yeah.
But I never really saw myself winning or getting pro cards or things like that. I just wanted to see what I could achieve in the gym with my physique by competing, but I wasn't really my first love. I just had a love of general fitness. I love bodyweight training. I absolutely love it. Press ups, chin-ups, dips. I love strength and conditioning training for sports, particularly the GA. I love training that way. And then I do like running.
Yeah.
I hadn't ran in a long time, but when I was playing football when I was underage, I was very, very, very fit. I was always, no matter what team I was on, club, Coleman's, Mayo under 16, I was always top 3 or 4 fitness wise running. And that was without any much preparation. I was just naturally a good runner, quite fit. Brennan has the same thing. He's always in the top handful of players when it comes to like a running test or a fitness test. So I saw David Goggins then, I saw those fellas influencers I follow, and they were doing some things like raising money for charity, 7 marathons in 7 days. I thought this was insane, you know, but their physiques didn't look that different to mine. And they had lost a little bit of muscle from a few months ago before they took on the running challenges. but not as much as we were led to believe. You dwindle away to be nothing more than a stick, or Mo Farah and the boys.
Yeah.
So another fella then, he ran like to the top of England all the way to the bottom, consecutively. Maybe it took him 2-3 weeks. William Googe is his name.
Googe or Googe?
Googe, Goodge, and he has a couple of documentaries, and I was very inspired by them. And I said, well, that would be a brilliant challenge to take on, running to raise money for charity. Because you can't really do a bodybuilding show for charity. You can't really lift weights for charity. But if you were doing a run or a marathon as well, I'm going to do the London Marathon for charity. I'm going to run whatever. Cycle the length of Ireland for charity. Those cardio type things seem to be more fundraiser, because they're more appealing to people, or
for people actually like
understand and accessible. It's like, I tried to run to the shop once and I couldn't do it, and you're running a marathon or whatever.
Here's €10.
Exactly. So I said I was going to pick the 9 million charity, but I had to get through the training first. So I was really nervous about getting injured. That's what the big fear for me was. And
just injuring like your groin or hamstring?
I hadn't ran in so long, and a lot of strength conditioning is fear mongering. You're going to get injured if you go running. Yeah, you're going to get injured if you lift heavy weights. And it's just so false. It's so false. We're so much more resilient than we're led to believe. So I didn't get a make of injury over the whole thing. The only thing that got sore a little bit was my calf, but it wasn't even an injury. It was just a little bit of stiffness. I'm lifting weights for 14 years now. Never been injured. Never got injured once. Never had any injuries. So I was very, very afraid of getting injured while I was doing the running. Not because I was afraid of being hurt, but because if I told everyone I was raising money and running the Width of Mayo and had spread that around and then had to pull out, it would have looked like I was shouting the togs, afraid to do it, or I was like just wussing out kind of thing. So that's why I was afraid of getting injured. But I got through that. But that's how I came up with the idea. It just wanted something new, something different. And these guys can do it. They don't look that different to me in terms of their physiques. I'm not as pretty as any of those models. Modeling for they model for like Gucci and Balenciaga and things like that. So I'm not that. I don't look like that. But they did have a physique like mine and yours. Nice and lean, nice and aesthetic. Not a mass monster, big, huge bodybuilding type. Just lean, aesthetic. Look like they can run. Look like they can jump, climb, cycle, whatever they need to do physically. And that was my favorite type of training anyway. So that's how I came up with the idea to do that run. And I've always, I know in the last podcast we talked about Arnold's 6 rules of success. What's the 6th? You should know this, Brennan.
It's the one I said the last day. I can't climb the ladder to success.
No, that's... The 6th rule is give something back. So if you're having a success, if you're having a good time, give something back. And I've always tried to do that. I've always tried to give whatever I can away, give it back, give free training to people, give free training advice. I've always tried to give people back, especially when I see that they love training. They love training. Well, I'm going to give them my time for free, help them get better at something. I think that's so important. But I also had in mind I'd love to do something for a charity, and that seemed like a great option to get something done for charity. So that was the 6th of Arnold's 6 rules of success. Give something back, and it was an opportunity to do that, go and fundraise. So it just ticked a lot of boxes. A big, scary challenge, nearly overwhelming, run the Width of Mayo.
Did it feel like that? Yeah.
Oh, it did. Yeah, it does. You come up with so many reasons in your head that are doubts. I'm not going to finish this. I'm not going to be able to do this. Like William Googe in his documentaries, and that he says that he never allows doubts to creep in. He has no doubts. He's just 100% sure. I was never that way. As a coach, as a player, as a football coach, as bodybuilding competitions, the marathon, I have so many doubts going through my head all the time. It's what I try not to do. It's why I find existential philosophy so important, because the thoughts themselves aren't that important. What's important is how I act them out. I act out the exact opposite. So you look at me in my actions and you say, he's no doubt.
No doubt.
He's 100% confident.
Inside he's like...
Yeah. Pretty much,
Yeah.
you know? Well, half of me is like that. The other half is, I'm going to fucking... Nothing's going to stop me type thing, you know? So that's how I came up with the idea. So, coming up with the idea, I don't think that's unusual. You doing the bodybuilding, me doing the ultramarathon, there's nothing that unusual about coming up with a big idea to get in the best shape of your life, or run farther than you've ever been in your life.
Let's have a quick look. How did you decide about the width of Mayo? And why that?
Because there was another ultramarathon runner that I had seen and known of, Robbie Ballinger, and he ran the width of America.
Oh, okay.
So, America, yeah. And cross-continental run. And it's actually quite common. There's a couple of thousand people that have run the width of America. So they ran from one coast to the other, whatever, I'm not even sure how many miles that is, but I know they covered 50 to 60 miles a day for maybe 90 days, something like that. And they completed it that way. So then, the width of Mayo, then he had ran from the top of England to the bottom, to Land's End. I forget what the one at the top is called, the bottom of point of England.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Land's End, and he ran down there. So I was like, the width of Mayo in a day.
Yeah.
That's where my idea came from. That and just something mad. Like I knew looking at the map, I took out Google Maps, and I was like, well, I know that sign in Ballantyne, you know, where you touch.
Welcome to Galway.
Welcome to Galway, welcome to Mayo. You're going up the N17, you see that sign. So I was like, well, that's where you enter Mayo, or one of the places where you enter Mayo. So where does Mayo end? And I looked out and I was like, Ackley, it ends in Ackley.
That's the furthest western point.
See, if you go straight across Mayo, it's the furthest. Now you could go further, but you're going diagonally up across Mayo, up to Belmullet.
Yes, yeah.
So if you look at the map, it's pretty much straight across, as straight as you can be. Roads don't go perfectly straight, but it's quite straight, and that was 100k.
Wow.
Did
you just look up on Google Maps and just be like,
looked it up on
like
Google
from
Maps.
Ballantyne directions to
Ackley. Yeah, and I it came up on Google Maps. And I love that 100k in a day sounds perfect to me. I actually put it on my story. Do you remember I put it on my story last January?
Yeah, I remember. Well, I don't remember though the timeline. Like that was before. That was the first time you looked at it and you were like, "Fuck, I'm gonna put this on my story now."
Six. I was like, I'm thinking of doing some challenge, and I hadn't even ran yet.
Wow. And
I put it on my stories. I just finished in David Goggins' book.
Was that because did you do that for a bit of accountability, or just kind of you just put it out into the atmosphere?
No, I'm not a fan of that accountability thing.
No,
where you're saying you're going to do something publicly to put pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
I'd be the opposite. If I said something publicly, I'd be more shitting a brick. I'd be more work in silence and then just I've done this.
Yeah.
You know, personally, I find that a little bit better. I know with the bodybuilding show, you said you were going to win the world title.
I mean, I did a fucking I did the whole YouTube series in preparation for that.
And you said you were going to win it, type thing.
Yeah.
The only reason I told anyone I was running across Mayo is because I had to raise the money beforehand.
Yes, yeah.
And I had never done that with any of my challenges before, whether that's opening a business, doing the bodybuilding shows, things like that. I never said, put myself like, as in, I'm going to do this and look, just watch me do big things coming soon job. Like a lot of social media do now. They want the praise for something and doing something before they actually accomplish it.
Yeah.
And like that works for some people, but I personally don't think that would suit me. So I had to do it this time, and it was definitely uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can imagine.
When you're not used to it. So basically, I started thinking about competing because I never would have competed at a bodybuilding show until I saw you and Dave up on stage, and then you just like osmosis, you're just taking on board what ye did and saying, I want to do that. Essentially, I'm trying to get across in this particular podcast the same thing. But one of the main things I'm going to try and get across in this podcast, the two of us, is we're not that special, and you can, maybe you're not going to run 60 miles, but you can run a marathon, no problem. I've a good few people have messaged me already and said they ran their first marathon because of me. Same with, maybe they don't want to do a bodybuilding show, like we said, they're quite odd things, but do they want to get the leanest in the best shape of their life where they look quite ripped and handsome, beautiful, whatever else, look as in like, wow, what a physique. They've never looked so good. Of course they do. So I think by looking at the extremes that we went through, they'll be able to take on board very much some of that energy that I took off William Gooch or David Goggins, or you took off Flex Lewis and the boys. So let's go into the nuts and bolts of those extremes. That will be the best place to go next. So what exactly did you eat when you're doing I'm going to say 24-week prep?
Well, it ended up being, when I went to the World Championships in America in November, it was about 34, I think, altogether.
34 weeks of prep.
Yeah.
From dieting.
Yeah.
Okay, 34 weeks.
Yeah.
12 weeks, I tell a lot of clients, and they'll get in the shape they need to be in. Why on earth did you need 34?
So my coach at the time, Declan, we were setting ourselves up he was giving me around, I think it was 24 weeks for the September show in Ireland, which was the goal, to go and win that one. So he was basically he wanted to make sure that we left no stone unturned and we didn't give ourselves, that we gave ourselves enough time. So previously, I think my first ever prep was 16 weeks. I think the one after that in 2017 was about 20 or maybe 18, and then this one was 24. So yeah, Deck just didn't want to leave anything up to chance. He wanted me to come in maybe 2 weeks before the show already in shape.
Okay, and then when you started that diet, that dieting phase, what did that look like?
So basically, I think a misconception that a lot of people have when it comes to getting in shape in general, whether not even the extreme of bodybuilding, but they think that when you're trying to get shredded or lean, that you have to completely change your diet and do something, you have to completely cut out all these foods. You can't have any junk food. But really, the real truth is that it's basically just a manipulation of energy intake and energy output. Yes. So we'll say towards the end of my off season, before I started dieting, my food had been pushed up pretty high to probably around 4,000 calories. So I was eating 4,000 calories a day, about 200 to 250 grams of protein, which is a lot for my body weight. Yes. And then the rest of the calories coming from carbs and fats. So the big change
So when you say your body weight, what actually was your body weight on those calories?
So my body weight starting, I was the heaviest I've ever been in my life, which is I was about 76 or 77 kg. It's the heaviest
Mass monster.
That's the heaviest I've ever been. Imagine. Which is like, if anyone's watching this, is it the metric system or the imperial? That's about 160 pounds.
Okay, 160 pounds.
Yeah.
He norms. Go on.
Huge. So then what my coach did was at the beginning, so we're 24 weeks out, he cuts my calories down from around 4,000 to maybe 3,400. That's the first thing he does. Protein stays
3,400.
Yeah,
about down 600.
About 600, yeah, initially. And then like my diet didn't change at all. I was just eating like the same foods but just in a less quantity. So for example, my meal that I might have before I train and after I train, if it was rice, it was just less rice.
Okay.
That was maybe the first, or I might take away a bit of oats from my oats.
Okay.
Yeah, that was all I had to do.
Nice and simple.
Very, very simple, yeah. But I think this is another thing that they do have a misconception that you have to you just cut all this stuff out straight away.
You have to remember you were starting off on 4,000 calories of good food, generally. Okay, let's say 80-90% good, healthy, single ingredient food.
Yeah, probably.
Some people are starting off on maybe 2,500 or 3,000 calories, but nearly 80% is processed shite. So you were not just, I'll start my diet today and just cut down a few calories. The quality was already quite good.
Yep.
So you just had to reduce the quantity. Some people starting off, they might be poor quality and quantity up and down all over the shop. You know?
Yeah.
So go on.
So basically then all that would happen was he'd monitor my body weight, he'd looks at me through my pictures and stuff. I go and see him in Burr and he'd make adjustments accordingly. So there's no specific game plan. He could make an adjustment after 2 weeks and think that my body weight hasn't dropped enough for what he's looking for. So he might reduce my calories from 3,400 down to 3,000. and then we go from there. He reassesses after another 2 weeks to see, is my body weight dropped, am I getting visually leaner, and then so it's very much like there's not a specific game plan. It's very much like analytical.
As you go along.
Yeah, there's a process in the way that it's all an equation. So he's basically, each time he makes an adjustment, let's say he went from 3,400 calories and he bumped me back to 3,000. He's after reducing my calories by 400 calories each day, which is 400 by 7 is 2,800. So in his head, he's basing his calculations off, okay, in 3,500 calories, there's a pound of fat. So that's a reference point. So he's trying to bring me down that close to that figure with each adjustment that he's doing. So like I could pull up all the data and tell you exactly what happened each week or each
right.
That's not really probably
no, but necessary. it is nice to get look at the attention to detail.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say then. I remember the first 4 weeks there wasn't an awful lot of changes made. He brought me down to 3-4 and my body weight started to drop. And then, like anything, it started to plateau and it slowed down. And basically in this instance, you've got 3 options. You can either reduce someone's calories, you can reduce their calories, or increase their output. 2 options really. They're the 2 kind of things you're manipulating. And the 2 manipulations with output that he would work with I'd have a specific step target, and he would either increase the step target or he'd introduce some sort of cardiovascular
Fitbit type step target.
Yeah, I had a Fitbit. Yeah, so like I would have started off, just because of my job, because of the gym and PT. I was quite active. I would be averaging probably 12,000 steps a day. So we found that average at the very start. So at least he knew what I was doing on average each week, and then the first change he made to my activity would have been increasing my step target from 12,000 to 14,000. And that was after maybe 6 weeks. And then another
14,000 steps a day is quite high activity.
But relative to me it wasn't. It was only an extra 2,000 because I was already quite active.
Okay.
But yeah, for someone who works in an office,
mine would not be above 8 on average most days. No. I don't know what you'd be doing in PT sessions.
Yeah. I don't know. I was quite active, but if someone was only doing 6,000, and then this is another issue sometimes. If someone is only doing 6,000, they work in an office and they're not that active, and if we don't have any data and we just say, oh yeah, start doing 12,000, that's a huge increase and it's probably not necessary. They could go from 6,000 to 8,000 and see progress.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's important.
Minimum effective dose.
Exactly, and Jack was big on that, and he was big on data and gathering data, and then he was very, very energy balance to him was the most important thing.
Okay.
So he was making all his adjustments to my calories. Even when he made me start doing cardio, he wouldn't just say, okay, you're doing 30 minutes on the treadmill. I had to go and test a treadmill and see how many calories I would burn on my Fitbit in 10 minutes.
Right.
And then he would say, okay, you're going to burn, you're not doing 10 minutes, you're not doing 20 minutes, you're burning this amount of calories this many times, or this amount of calories for the whole week on cardio. Split it up as you may. So for example, he might say you're burning 700 calories this week, okay, and you can do 100 calories 7 times a week, or you can just go and burn 350 calories twice a week. But it's not about how many times you're doing cardio, it's about how many calories you're burning.
Interesting.
So that's how he made all his adjustments, which makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so that's the food starting. Okay, so that's maybe 24 weeks out or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward to 12 weeks out. This is where you start looking like a lot of my after clients. You look great. Like my after photos on the gym, they look great. But you're only just about to get started in terms of the real pain threshold. What I say to a lot of my clients in the gym is they don't actually need to go to that pain barrier to get in the best shape of their life, which they don't. Maybe a little bit hungry or sacrifice a little bit, but on the grand scheme of things in terms of bodybuilding diets and bodybuilding preps, they don't need to go into the pain, house of pain at all. Let's call it. So you are starting to feel hungry 12 weeks out. What does that feel like? What's the cardios? What's the protein? What's changed since starting?
So around 12 weeks out. It's funny, that first 12 weeks is actually not very difficult at all. It's just your food's lower and stuff, and you're doing a bit more output, but it's not a big deal. Once you start hitting around the 10 weeks out, you start feeling the pinch. And my calories would have been down to around At this point, they'd worked down from 4,000 to around 2,400, I want to say.
Okay.
Around that, that place. Now at this point as well, there's a step target. It was probably still around the 12,000, or sorry, around the 14,000 mark, and then this is where like cardio and stuff was starting to get introduced, like a specific amount of calories. So at this point, I would have been on probably around 600 calories of cardio a week, which would have been for me about, and it would have taken me at the time about an hour to burn 100 calories. So I would have been doing either an hour of cardio, steady state, just walking on a treadmill 6 times a week.
Okay. And then, how deep did you go into that calorie deficit coming into the show? Protein stayed the same, I presume? Yeah,
so for the majority of this prep, my protein stayed, it's actually, this is interesting enough, my protein would have stayed around 220 with all the adjustments and stuff.
Which is about 3 times your body weight in kgs.
Yeah.
So 2x is a good target for most people, but you were on 3x because of the severity of the deficit, I suppose. The more protein, the better.
Yeah, and the more muscle mass you have, the higher your protein intake should be to maintain your muscle mass. Because the idea of that prep as well is not only to lose body fat, that's probably it's like the most important, but not to be snuffed at, is you need to also maintain the muscle mass you've built.
Exactly.
Which is as important, I would say.
And the gradual approach you're taking, where it's a little bit at a time, and allowing things, minimum effective dose, allowing things to go down a little bit at a time, allows for the best possible opportunity for you to hold on to as much muscle mass as possible.
Yep.
The more dramatic the drops, the worry for a deck, your coach, and for you would be you'd lose a bit of muscle and strength with it.
Yeah, which is, you don't want, especially with natural bodybuilding, where there's no, you're not enhancing yourself with anything. You want to look as muscular as possible, because you do run the risk when you're trying to get really lean as a natural. You do run the risk of losing muscle mass, and it affects the whole look. What was one thing I had going for me was that I had quite a thick, dense look.
Yes.
Which we thought would benefit me, especially at a higher level. But I was going to make the point there. Yeah, so what Deck did actually, which was quite interesting, as my calories got very low, so as they got below 2,000, which coming into the last kind of like 6 weeks, they started creeping below the 2,000. What he would do on, especially my non-training days, so he would split my calories up for training days and non-training days.
Okay.
So he'd have them lower on my non-training days, because I wasn't burning as much energy, and he would hike my protein up very, very high, so it would keep me satiated and keep me fuller while I was on lower calories. So sometimes he'd change my protein and put it up as high as 300 grams, which is very, very high. But the goal with that and the intention with that was that as my calories were going down to like 1,900, 1,800, that if I was eating, instead of 220 grams protein, if I was eating 300, although I was eating less calories, because protein is the most satiating macronutrient, it keeps you satisfied the most. That was kind of his rationale and his thinking behind that, which I had never done that before in a prep. I had never eaten that high protein, but it worked.
It did.
It did make me feel a bit more down. I was still fucking hungry all the time, but it definitely helped keep my satiety a bit.
Yeah. So you just weren't as hungry because the protein was so high.
Yeah.
I find that myself all the time in my own food. The higher the protein, the less hungry I am. The less calories I need to get through the day.
Same with clients.
If I have a very big, high protein, red meat breakfast, I'm not hungry.
Yep.
I'm not hungry. I can survive and get through the day, no problem, eating far less food.
Look, it's one of the things that I preach to my clients. It's like, look, at the very beginning when they first come, I'm like, let's just get you eating more protein, and let's say the other stuff that they say, shouldn't be fucking eating these biscuits or this or that, they start to just gradually stop having those stuff by default, because they're not as hungry to have them, because they're more satiated from eating more protein.
Now, the benefits of the high protein diet, of high protein for everything, it's a rabbit hole we could spend.
That's not.
We could write a book on it, and there is plenty of books written on nearly the importance of protein alone. But for someone doing any type of challenge, the marathon running, bodybuilding, preparing for a sport, just increase your protein. It's such a big one. No matter what type of physical challenge you're doing, or even what type of mental challenge you're doing. If you increase your protein, chances are things are going to go a lot smoother.
Yeah, increase your cognitive function, definitely. But just getting back, yeah. So it's basically the lead up to the first show. By the end, we'll say steps now at this point have gotten pretty high too. They were up around 16,000.
Okay.
Cardio, I was up burning around. I think I must have been up burning about 1,000 calories a week, which would have looked like if I was doing over an hour. No, it would have been like an hour and 10, maybe an hour and 10 on the treadmill every day. And there was also a little introduction of he introduced 2 HIIT sessions to me as well as the list. So an extra way to burn a bit more energy, so burn cardio. So he used to give me like 100 calories to burn in a HIIT session, which was pretty, at that point when you're digging deep, you don't have as much energy. That was very grueling, very challenging, but this is the plan, and he told me to do, and I didn't ask questions. I believed in him.
And then what was the lowest the calories got, and how tough was that? How hungry were you?
So the calories, the lowest that they got to would have been about probably 1,650, 1,700.
Oof.
Yeah.
That is
that would have been, the lowest.
It's painful to think about that.
It is.
No, I think with anyone listening to this podcast or myself, I'd manage those for a day, no problem. No complaints. I'd manage them for a week, suffering a little bit. But when you go 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks on those low calories, it's just torture. It's so tough. You were a shadow of yourself. Personality wise, you could barely talk just because your body just down regulates. What's going on inside your head when you're just so hungry all the time and your body's just telling you to eat more food, but you're just sticking to the process, saying no. You can barely talk, you're in bad mood all the time. Joe, we know not to take it personally. It's just you're hungry, you're doing a bodybuilding show.
What's that like? Before,
yeah. What's it like?
It's tough. It's very it's mentally quite challenging. Like you said, your mind and your body is in survival mode, so it's just giving signals to eat. So I guess you have to have a lot of discipline, a lot of you have to be able to restrain yourself a lot. But for me, it was, I'm going to sit here and I'm not going to say it was easy. It wasn't. It was fucking really, really hard. But for me, what kept me, I was just so fucking fixated on winning. And especially because of the 2 years previous, I just had in my mind, I was like, I come to terms with the fact that this was going to be the case, and that I was just going to do whatever was necessary. And if it meant that I had to be hungry, if it had to be in bad mood, if it was going to affect, hopefully it wasn't going to affect relationships, but it definitely took its toll on.
Well, I remember Viv saying to me one time, how are you finding him? He's like a fucking, I do think sometimes, Jesus, did I say something wrong? He's like a cunt, but it's just part of it.
Yeah.
It is just part of it. And surrounding yourself with people who understand that and don't take it personally.
Yeah.
It's not just helps, it's crucial. I don't think you can be successful without that.
Yeah, and I was lucky that all of you were very supportive, and you definitely didn't take it personally, which was huge, because it allowed me just to not question, and because you could have a crisis.
So you're quite positive and bubbly, and you have a laugh and you have a joke, and you have a big greeting for people. All that vanished.
Yeah.
I remember 2 or 3 months afterwards we were laughing with it, and geez, you're coming back to life of it. You'd be months there just training clients with this blank expression on your face, and you just wouldn't be able to even look sideways. Yeah. I experienced that for maybe a month, but you did it for 3-4 months.
Yeah.
Because when you won your Irish title, you had to continue on.
Yeah.
Maybe your cheat meal or whatever, but you had to continue on those extremely low calories for far longer.
Yeah, we pushed harder for 10 more weeks after, which was the most grueling.
Yeah. So when on my food, so I did a 5-day fast recently, no food for 5 days. Okay.
Yeah. How's that?
It's nothing as hard as bodybuilding prep.
Okay.
You couldn't compare them. Bodybuilding prep is so much harder than a 5-day fast. So much harder. No, the 5-day fast is hard. But something that opened my eyes was when I said I did a 5-day fast, everyone's like, that's insane. You haven't had food for 5 days. And I was like, the amount of people that go from one end of their life to the next without knowing what hunger really feels like at this day and age, it's crazy. It's insane. And do you know why it's insane?
Because we're not wired to be like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Up until 100 years ago, there was cholera and TB in Claremorris.
Wow.
That's how primitive we were, and that's how scarce food was. Like, so for our whole evolution as a species, we're used to like a Charles Dickens novel where they're just begging for a tiny little bit more porridge or whatever it might be, and you're not used to this huge abundance of food, of high caloric food everywhere we go now. So like, for someone watching this or listening to this, is a time you went hungry for a while, is a time you went hungry for a while and realized what your ancestors felt like when they couldn't find food for a long time. Not because it's bad for you or not because you deserve to be punished, but because that's essentially what your body might need, your digestive system might need. You'll stop gaining so much body fat. It's time to go hungry. Maybe not to go to the extremes you did on low calories for that long, or the extremes I did on 5-day fast, but this abundance of junk food that's just so bad for you. It's time to go hungry from it for a while and see what you're made of. Get the mental benefits and physical health benefits that come with that type of dieting.
There is something to be said for that, because since I did the prep and stuff, and I did experience like what it's like to be hungry a lot of the time, I've now carried that with me to now, like on a day, there's days where like you're just busy.
Yeah.
You just can't fucking eat for 7-10 hours, and it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal, one. But number two, what I've actually noticed, I actually perform, would say definitely cognitively, I perform better when I don't eat for extended periods of time.
100%.
Don't you?
100%. But that's Andrew Huberman, you know, the Hubermans, the Peter Attias of the world, they will say that you know, cognitive functioning increases when you are fasting or whatever else, you know. So I found that through treating my body, my physique, as a little science experiment. What happens if I fast? What happens if I go on a diet? You are way more mentally alert when you're hungry. There's just no doubt about that. It sharpens up a sense of alertness and readiness to learn, to see things, to read things that you just cannot get while you're just stuffed on foods that makes you lazy.
Sloppy. When you're
it makes you sloppy and lazy when you're constantly eating food.
It does, but that's what everyone is. We're all used to just constantly being full and only being satisfied when we feel like that.
Having too much. Now, you said it teaches you how to. So many times, if you want to achieve any bit of success in life, you have to go long periods without eating. You have to go long periods without eating as much food as you want to eat. If you do a diet like this, you learn that skill. It's a skill. It's no big deal if I can't eat for the rest of the day, because I don't need to eat. I can survive easily for far longer than that without eating. Most people now, if they miss breakfast, they miss lunch. Oh my God, I haven't ate since this time. We're led to believe that it's a big deal when it is not a big deal whatsoever.
No. Also as well, it's maybe the sadistic side to me, but I enjoy sometimes just that feeling of hunger in my stomach. It just makes me, I don't know, it just makes me, it's like...
I know exactly what you mean. But I will bring up that. I think that would be a great finishing point, that bit of pain threshold. So I was going to talk to you about food and then separately cardio, but we seem to have covered food and cardio in the one there, because calories and calories burnt go hand in hand. Okay, so what I'll do is go into my own food for the marathon run, because people might be interested in that, obviously, and how simple it was. The fact that marathon running, you're never hungry. You never have to diet. You never have to be on low calories.
Because you're burning so much?
Exactly. Made it so much easier. Made it so much easier. Our bodybuilding prep, in terms of the diet and whatever else, is just so much harder because of the deficit.
Yeah.
Being in a calorie deficit for a prolonged period of time is really, really tough. You know, you don't have that with marathon running. I didn't anyway. I was always in a bit of a surplus because I was burning so much calories. I could eat plenty. I had plenty of jellies. I had a lot of jellies, can of Red Bull, Powerades, things like that. But they were all on top of your starting diet. You know, the diet you had starting off. High protein, high in micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, fiber. I would have been eating 250 grams of protein a day. I eat very high protein, and all I had to do to my starting diet was add in jellies and things like that, because on the day to day I eat high protein and pretty steady calories.
Did you have any idea at that time what your starting point was calorie wise?
It would have been roughly
Yeah.
2,000 to 2,500 with one cheat meal every week where I would have had a pizza.
Okay.
And I was able to eat the exact same the whole way through, but taking more fast digesting sugars like my smoothies and the jellies and things like that.
So was that 2.5, around that 2.5, was that where you were very comfortable around? Was that kind of like maintenance where you felt?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it. That was maintenance.
Okay.
So that was about 500 calories per day more than the diet I would have done for the shoot, to get very lean for the shoot.
Yeah.
Not bodybuilding lean, but lean
Yeah,
enough.
that's pretty lean,
Enough for a shoot, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was about at least 500 to 1,000 less than my bulking calories, where I know I need to eat this much to continue progressively overloading in the gym week to week.
Yeah, which you don't feel as good in general day to day when you're eating that much extra food.
Not at all.
No, you feel sluggish.
You might gain extra muscle and
Yeah.
extra strength, but you do feel very, very sluggish because the calories are so much higher. So my food did not actually change that much. I could tell you what I had. I had 3 turkey burgers and the Mexican rice meal,
Yep.
with pepper and lemon. So a very simple meal. And then I had 300 grams of sirloin steak. So I've always been a big fan of having steak every single day. Just agrees with me so much. I feel so much better on meat. I had that with the Spanish grains, that meal that I cook. I've put online a couple of times.
Yep.
And I had a smoothie usually with that, and that was my 3 meals a day. So it would be vegan protein powder. I feel it agrees with me better than
the normal way.
yeah, and then the plenty of blended up fruit, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, bananas, and then the only thing I would have had some of those fast digesting carbs with the running days, not on the non-running days. What exact foods did you eat? We talked a lot about calories and grams of protein. They were the actual foods that I ate. What were the foods or meals that you ate?
Yeah, so basically kind of similar. I would have had like either beef mince or chicken and rice and veg for like my first meal of the day before I train.
Beef.
So beef mince, just lean beef mince.
So chicken and rice basically.
Yeah, and like so it would either be chicken, rice and veg. And when I say veg, I mean green veg like asparagus or green beans.
Okay.
Or it would be beef mince, rice and green veg for my first meal.
Okay.
And it was tasty. I would obviously chop up like peppers with chicken and use spices and lemon juice and shit like that.
And food tastes so much better when you're on diet anyway. It's incredible how good even the plainest of meals taste when you're hungry.
Oh yeah, but that was another though misconception. My meals, like Dave lived with me at the time, and like he started using the same recipe and stuff because he was just like, this fucking mincemeat with the rice, the way I cook it really fluffy is so tasty. It's like premium.
So how did you make it tasty? Briefly.
I would just use with my chicken meal. I would just use peppers. I chop them up. I would use lemon juice and maybe a smoked paprika as well on top.
The lemon juice peppers combo is very solid for cooking meats, isn't it? Stir fry.
No, I would use that more so for chicken. For mince, I would use mushrooms, onions, and then I would use Old El Paso taco spice and paprika.
What, the smoky barbecue one?
No. Old El Paso it was like a taco, not smoky barbecue.
Okay.
It was more like for beef tacos. That was really, really tasty. And then the rice would be cooked in a rice cooker. It was usually either basmati or jasmine. I like jasmine rice because it was quite fluffy. It's like fluffy white rice.
So just to confirm, you weren't having tacos, you were just using the taco spice.
Yes. And just beef mince, beef mince, like 200 grams or 250 grams, 300 grams, whatever the serving was.
Okay.
That would always be
how many meals did you have a day?
So that would only be my pre-workout meal, and I'd cook 2 of them.
At what time?
I'd have that one at about 10:30 a.m. My first meal.
10:30 after doing a few PT.
So I'd be up at like 5:30 in the gym at 6. Wouldn't eat.
I wouldn't be in the gym at that time.
You wouldn't. No. Back then, there was times where maybe
suppose
7,
maybe.
6:30, 7.
Yeah.
Never 6.
Yeah. I haven't worn.
Never got the hang.
No, never got the hang of the morning sessions.
Yeah, so that would be so I wouldn't. That was another thing. I wouldn't eat like first thing when I got up. I would just fast. I might have a coffee. Coming very close to the show, I used to drive out to Ballindine and get coffee at like 5:45 in the morning.
I used to drive out to Ballindine to get my coffee too before Insomnia opened in Mars.
Ludicrous.
Crazy, really, looking back.
But
But you had to secure the goods.
yeah,
The caffeine was absolutely.
it was essential. So I'd have that meal, at like 10:30 in the morning, would say, and I'd have a canned Monster with it because that was just what I liked to have before I trained. Then when I got home I'd cook 2 of those meals. I'd eat one and cook one for later. You know, efficiency. I'd come home and then my post-workout meal would be oats, porridge oats, like whatever the quantity was, with some protein powder in them, 50 grams usually.
You and Dave absolutely loved that meal though.
Yeah. And I'd have dark chocolate and white chocolate in that to make it, like, it was like a dessert, to be honest with you.
Yes.
And I'd also, when the calories were higher, I'd have 3 rice cakes with it as well, or 2 rice cakes.
Okay.
That was my post-workout meal. And then before I go back into the gym, I would have the other rice and rice and either chicken or beef meal. As I got closer to the show, there'd be no rice in that meal. It would just be no rice. It would just be veg and protein.
Those are the saddest days of prep when the carbs get removed.
Yeah.
They're the toughest days.
They are. Yeah.
Because you're used to having this as a little treat.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even like a chocolate bar, it's just a little treat because you get a little bit of potatoes, a little bit of rice, maybe even a little bit of fruit in your smoothie, but because it's time for the carbs to go, it's really tough. It's like someone taking away one of your favourite parts of the day. I know exactly what that feels like. It's very, very tough. I've done enough diets to realise, okay, that bit of flexibility, usually through carbs, maybe sometimes fats too, it gets taken away. It's tough. So you know you're in the trench when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's just part and parcel. You just, you do it.
And the people watching this will not know what that feels like, most of them, because they can get in the best shape of their life without doing that. You know, they can get in great shape on 2,500 calories usually for a man. There's no need to drop your carbs. You could easily hit 200 grams of protein. My clients there with the great before and after photos, Kyle, Joey, Mikey, they would have known what hunger felt like, but not zero carb hunger. Zero carb hunger is extremely tough. Yeah.
Get PTSD thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then that would take up until I went back to the gym for my evening clients. I'd have that second beef or chicken meal, go to the gym, come home at like 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. whatever time it was I finished, and I would have the chopped up potatoes in the air fryer with a bit of green veg, and it would usually be like a burger. It's like 2 beef burgers or 1 beef burger, depending on the quantity. And as I got close to the show, those potatoes would be taken out and it would just be kind of veg and protein. So that my meal was made up of basically just meat, eat rice, potatoes, veg. The fruit that I'd have, I'd usually have an apple. That was my go-to. It was an apple, 1 apple a day. And then
keeping the doctor away.
Yep. And then the oats. So that was pretty much that was my nothing crazy in there at all.
Okay, and simply that was it at the start and that was it at the finish. You just removed the carbs.
Yeah, certain quantities were taken out. Like the rice cakes were completely taken out. The quantity of chocolate, dark chocolate and white chocolate, because they're quite high in fat. Would have been reduced
people can think, okay, what the hell do I eat? What's my diet going to be? What do I eat to get in shape? I think our diets have been remarkably simple.
I just ate what I enjoyed eating.
Yeah.
I wasn't eating any different when I was eating an abundance of food. I just ate less.
Yeah, and I think far more people can enjoy eating the way we eat than they think. They just need to try it. Be consistent with it for a month or two. That craving they have for rich junk food will disappear gradually.
I need to learn how to cook.
Yeah, I need to learn
how to cook. We would both consider ourselves pretty decent.
You have to be. I don't think you can do bodybuilding prep as a bad cook. You just have to learn how to make foods palatable, as we say. Just make them tasty, add flavour. Next, we'll talk your strength training. What did your training actually look like?
Again, my training, like similar to my diet, didn't change dramatically at all in terms of we didn't start doing like a magic kind of fat loss training program or workout. The split that I had been on in my off season was legs push pull, rest legs, push, and then it would rotate the next week where you do 2 push, 2 legs, 1 pull, and then the following week it would be 1 leg, 2 push and 2 pull. So it was just a legs
How
push
many
pull.
sessions a week?
I was training 5 days a week.
5 days.
Yeah, Deck was big on recovery too. He like in taking those 2 days off of recovery. Now there was a time when he did bring me to do 6 days a week as we got closer. But for the majority of my prep, I was on 5 days a week.
Yeah, those recovery days very underrated.
Oh, definitely, absolutely.
Even when you're trying to get as lean as possible, more isn't necessarily better.
No. And then there did come a certain point where I was just doing something, obviously 7 days a week, because we just were pushing. But for an average person who's not doing a bodybuilding show, like 4 days of training is plenty. You know, 5.
Some of the best results I ever got were on 3 days a week.
There you go.
Yeah. So you train 5 days a week. What exercises? We'll separate the sessions, probably be the best way. What were your favorite exercises on the push day, the pull day, the leg day?
So the push day would usually start with some kind of like heavy compound move exercise. So the two, it would start with sometimes with it would be like weighted dips, so weighted chest dips, which I loved. I found them to be a great exercise for
Big
building my
favorite
chest.
at 100%.
Yeah. So weighted chest dips, and then I'd move on to like some sort of compound dumbbell press. So probably usually like a 30-degree press.
Okay, what weight did you get up to in your
dips?
Dips, yeah.
I would have been doing like my body weight plus like 50 kg at some
For
point.
how many reps?
For like sets of 8 sometimes.
Okay. Body weight plus 50 kg. So
Yeah.
nearly your body weight at that stage. You were down to 60. You were down in 60, 70 kg. You're nearly. It's like having another Brennan on top of his shoulders while he's doing the dips.
Yeah. I would have been like my lowest ever weighing when I was my lightest at prep was like 63.9 kg.
Wow. Okay. So go on.
So then 30-degree or a flat or 40, like some kind of dumbbell press.
Yeah, I do find that 30-degree the best chest press.
Yeah, I enjoy that one too.
John Meadows says that too. So what weight did you get up to on that?
I would have been doing. I was doing 40s for like sets of like maybe.
That's extremely strong relative to your body weight.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe like sets of. When calories were lower, when calories were higher, I would have done sets of 8 and stuff. Maybe I don't know about 10, but when calories were down, they were getting like when I was digging, like 40s would have been hard for like fucking 5-6 reps.
Okay.
But I would have done a lot of like sets as well, 35s for like 10, 12. And then I would have done like a chest isolation exercise. So either it would have been some sort of cable fly or some sort of dumbbell fly. And then moving on to shoulders.
You liked the press up though as well, didn't you? Stretch push ups.
Yeah.
Do I remember you doing them?
Yeah, I would have done them.
I know I'm a big fan of them. I thought I saw you doing them.
I would have done them, maybe not so much with tech. They were more, Brian Hickey used to have me doing them.
Yes.
And doing isometric holds and stuff.
Yes.
And then it would be like a shoulder compound exercise. So it might have been a dumbbell press, like a dumbbell shoulder press or a military press of some sort. And then we do an isolation delta work, so it could be like some form of lateral raise, like a dumbbell lateral raise, a cable lateral raise, and then there'd be a bit of tricep
push downs to finish.
Yeah, a push down or
skull
crusher of some sort. Yeah, so the way actually that my training was structured with the push stuff was sometimes some phases it might be one day would be a chest dominant push session and the other one would be a shoulder dominant push session. So they would look a little bit different. Whereas on the chest dominant push session, you do obviously more chest work. So you might do 3 to 4 chest exercises, only 2 shoulder, 1 tricep. On the shoulder dominant, you'd start your workout with the shoulders and then go to chest. So shoulders, it could be a press, 2 isolation exercises. Then you might only do 2 chest exercises and then 2 tricep exercises.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the back day or pull day.
Like you'd start with a weighted pull up of some sort.
Always?
Not always. Sometimes you might actually start with a isolation exercise to get your lats pumped and then move on to like a compound exercise.
Yes. Okay.
So it's just a different way of approaching. But a lot of my back work was weighted chin-ups, and then you had stuff like cable rows, 1-arm dumbbell rows, there'd be barbell bent over rows, even rack pulls would have been put in there as well. Rack pulls were like on a different, let's say, a weighted chin up day and a rack pull day, they would have been kept separate because they're competing for motor neurons. Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then there was also rear delt work in my pull days, so a lot of rear delt flies, cable flies, like rear delt stuff, and then there was bicep stuff too as well at the end, so it could be an easy bar curl, that was a big favourite, or any kind of variation of a dumbbell curl, so 45-degree dumbbell curls, hammer curls, or even cable curls.
Okay, so then your leg day?
Leg day was it was usually split up between a quad dominant leg day and glute, hamstring, posterior chain dominant leg day. So a lot of like barbell squats were always in there. There was always leg curls in there. RDLs were always in there. Bulgarian split squats, lunges, and then obviously I always did calf work as well.
All the good stuff.
Calf raises. Yeah, just all the leg presses too actually.
Yeah.
There was leg press would have been in there. I didn't do much leg extensions.
Now, what is very underrated is your ability to do hard sets. So your ability to train extremely hard. So you'd have the music pumping. When I give out to you for having the music pumping too loud and then being at us next door, I remember hopping out the car door one day and just opening the car door ready to go into the gym, and after just telling Cian and Dave not to have the music too loud because I got told off the week before by the building beside us which is an office. I opened the car door and all I can hear is Plain Jane ASAP Ferg pumping out the windows at about 2 o'clock in the day. And I go upstairs and give out to you, but you had the music pumping, either headphones or from the speaker, and your ability to push through extremely hard sets. It's just what set you apart, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah, I think so. Because I wouldn't be considered, I don't think anyway, that I would be considered like a genetic freak at all, by any means.
No.
Not that I am poor genetically either, but I definitely would have had to have worked very hard to achieve the look that I achieved. And that just like mostly just didn't come onto my frame. I had to train very hard to get it. So yeah, I guess I can't, from a young age, it was always the same though. Even with soccer, I always felt like I had to work very hard physically more so because I was disadvantaged from a lot of other players that I played against. So it was just kind of ingrained in me that I had to take things very. Of
course.
I had to push
and
myself
so
very
like
hard.
one thing I find with my clients. Why do they look so much better than other PTs after photos? Because they train harder.
Yeah.
Similar calories, similar macro, similar cardio.
No crazy exercises.
No crazy exercises, but I push them extremely hard and I'm good at cueing their technique. So doing good technique, training very hard. If you want to look your best, male or female, photo shoot or wedding or on the beach or bodybuilding show, you have to train very, very hard to get that look.
Yeah, the longer I've been doing this, the more I'm starting to shift my focus even more so towards not to say the calories and protein aren't important. They are very important. You won't no matter if you're not eating sufficient calories or less calories than you should be if you want to lose body fat, it's not going to happen for you. But just thinking that you can just focus on calories and protein alone and not really train hard, not really train hard, you're not going to change the way you look significantly. It's just not going to happen. So I've become even more as I've gotten older and as I've been doing this for longer. I'm pushing at clients that like training fucking hard is so important. If you want to change the way that you look, like dramatically.
And to break down your training again, so you did chest dips.
Yep.
You did chin ups.
Yep.
When you did squats and Bulgarian split squats.
Oh yeah, squats like
they're you get strong at those as a man especially. The rest will usually take care of themselves. Chin ups, you said dumbbell rows, cable rows. There's nothing magic in what was the main focus of your throwing a few isolation exercises and there you go. But that is really train really, really hard at the basics.
And just beating the logbook. Yeah. I was big into that as well. I used to obviously log every session and just trying to beat the logbook every session, and it might not always happen for me every session, but I was going in with the mindset of okay, I got 3x8 or I got 1 by 8 and 1 by 12 at this weight last week. I'm going to up it by 2.5 kilos, like small increments, and I was always going in with that idea that I'm going to progress, I'm going to beat the last session.
Yeah. And when I was strength training during the marathon, I was trying to just preserve muscle mass and keep the bit of strength. So all I did was walking lunges.
So how many times did you
Twice a week.
train?
Twice a week, and I do kind of a handstand session. So I wanted to learn how to do handstands and run a marathon at the same time. So I did a bit of handstand work, which would be a lot of flexibility, a lot of wall drills. Your shoulders get on a bit of a pump, but not anything like bodybuilding.
Yep.
So my strength training sessions will be twice a week, and they'd look like handstand work for maybe 20 minutes, half an hour. And then after that, I do like walking lunges, supersetted with Nordic falls or hamstring curls. And then I would do dips and chin-ups, supersetted together.
In the same session?
Yeah.
Okay. What was that like?
And then I'd finish with like sled drag or some sort of row to failure. No isolation work, just get in, get a good pump, full body type workout, get out again.
How did you enjoy doing the full body stuff? Because you wouldn't have done full body for a long time.
I didn't mind it at all, because I felt like it was a little treat in between the running and kind of a muscle preservation. So running is extremely satisfying in a way, because you're, I'm better than the last day and you can see this bit of progress or whatever. But it's nothing as enjoyable as strength training. Strength training is just such an enjoyable way to train. For me personally, I love training that way. Strength training is broad. It's powerlifting, bodybuilding, strength conditioning, gymnastics. They're all strength training, so it's quite broad body weight strength training. But it's far more enjoyable way to train than doing like long distance cardio. Okay. So I was just trying to do the strength training that would complement my running, and I do a good bit of stretching then with that. And then my running, I basically made it up. So I did 3 days a week. A long run on the Sunday, where I'd always try and go 5, 10, 15k. Started off out to Ballindine, week 1. Week 2 went to Ballindine, Carrymore.
Okay. For your long run on the Sunday?
For the long run on a Sunday.
Okay.
Week 3 went to Hollymount. Week 4 went to Ballinrobe.
So each one is actually a little bit longer.
Yeah. Week 5 went to Kilmaine. I'm not sure which was longer, Kilmaine or Ballinrobe, but they would have been quite similar. Week 6 went to the gates of Ashford Castle, so the meal. And then I knew I was ready to do a marathon then after that. That was 33. So it was 6 weeks, and they were the long runs each Sunday. I did a fast 5k each Wednesday. The last 3-4 weeks leading into the long runs, I made that a 10k, but mostly it was a fast 5k, as fast a 5k as I could do. I think 21 or 22 minutes was the fastest I could do, but it was a very hilly 5k. Okay. So it was from here in Ellen Park, up the Knock Road past Coleman's College, all the dirty hills, and then back all that road all the way down onto the N17. Yep. And once I hit 2.5k, I just turn and go like the hammers back. And that was the hardest run I did. That was far harder than the long runs. Far harder.
5k is at a pace.
Fast 5k is one of the hardest runs you can do. So everyone was doing them during lockdown, and Usain Bolt times. But anyways, I was doing them. Fastest I got was 21, 22. Now, I never did a flat one. I was happy that was hilly, because I was like, I need to do hard training if I want to do a marathon, and I'm going to meet some hills. Yep. So I'd like to know what I was capable of on a flat go. People tell me that the flat ones are far easier, but I've never done a long flat run. Because Clamars is a very hilly area. You look, all the surrounding area, there's hills out of all of it. By Hunts Road, up by Hunts, you look out Carrymore, there's hills up the Mayfield Hill, out the Ball Road is a hill, out towards the Knott Road. It's all hills. So all my so much of my training was a big hill. So I can't remember seeing a hill on the day of the long run 60 or any of the marathons and thinking this is a big deal.
Okay.
Because I was so used to hills around Clamars, and none of them were as bad as Mayfield. Like.
So wait, that was the long run, the fast 5K. What was the third one?
The third one was before Mayo Gales training. I would go out there and do laps of the pitch. They have a lovely little track around the pitch, footpath, and I would go as fast as I can around it, pause the clock, and take a minute break, and then go as fast. And I do that between 5 to 12 times, depending on the week, depending on what time I got out there. But they were really tough. You're going as fast as you can. Now it's not a sprint, because who can sprint a lap? You're well below my 100% speed. You might be even going at 50-60% of your max speed. But I would try and keep that as fast as possible. And I usually end up getting them in less than 2 minutes. And usually they were about 500 meters, because the Apple Watch actually clocks the distance lovely. And I stop the distance and stop the time each time. So it's usually about 500 meters exactly if you run that on the outside.
The lap of an athletics track is 400 meters.
Yeah. This was definitely, it's definitely a good bit longer than that. It's a lap of a GAA pitch.
Yeah.
And it was, but I really enjoyed it.
Sorry, you were giving yourself a minute rest?
1 minute rest.
So the work ratio was almost 2 to 1?
It was almost 2 to 1, because it's long distance cardio. I trained football teams for a very, very long time and gave them 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 rest.
Okay.
So the rest was 2 or 3 times as long as the running time. But I knew I wasn't trying to play a football match. I was trying to run as far as possible. So I did 1 intervals day, 1 fast 5K, 1 long run on Sunday.
Okay, but the long run, I find this interesting. The long run on the Sunday, even your longest run, which is probably to Ashford, long road to Ashford. How many kilometers is that to Ashford from here?
It's 33, I think 34.
Oh, okay.
So all I did was the GA pitches around South Mayo. So like go to the different ones around South Mayo and just run there, because I know them roads quite well. And I think it would be mad. I ran from here to here to Con.
It's not something you drive them all the time, but you never run them.
Yeah, you think like, geez, I've a match there, drive 10-20 minutes to it. And
yeah,
like,
no, give yourself 2 hours and run.
This daft quick ran to it,
Yeah. Back in the day, cunts were probably doing that.
That was a big motivation for me. I'd often hear Dad or uncles, my mother,
Uncle
like, go back and jump back. Yeah, Uncle Dominic for you. He'd be like, oh, back in our day we used to, and they're not talking shite. We used to cycle to school, or we used to walk to whatever, and and they do it daily. It wouldn't be a once off like me. It would be a daily thing. So you're hearing that, you think that's impossible. You think that I can't do that. My body would break if I tried to do that. And then you do it, and it's like, this is actually far easier than I thought it would be. Not easy.
Not easy though, no.
Not easy. Hard, but geez, I'm sound. I ran my first marathon and just hopped in the car and went to train. Or my second marathon. I ran my first marathon, finished up by Westport, went straight to a match. We were playing Kilmaine that day, so I just went straight to Kilmaine.
Do you think you could have been able to do a marathon without, like a regular marathon, without any training?
If you asked me at the time, I would have said no.
No.
But I don't see why. Now looking back, I could have definitely done it.
Wow.
Like maybe the body would have broken down.
Yeah.
Which is a high possibility. But mentally, would you push yourself to it? Of course you would. Of course you would. So a lot of people are looking at marathons now and they're thinking, oh my god, I'd never be able to do that. You can.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You can. Like 12 weeks training, no problem. You can.
You reckon you could have done it without any training?
Well, a fellow wrote me a lovely message. Ran his first marathon, and he did it because he was watching my videos, and he said, it got me out of my comfort zone, and he said, I just completed my first marathon, and his phrase was, I feel like a dog with 2 dicks today because I ran my first marathon. Thanks very much to you. So so that was obviously very nice. People used to write so many messages to me, because I'd be like, okay, this is week 3 or I'm running out, and people would be saying, I was excited to see where you'd end up today, type thing. But there was no great master plan, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It was just like,
you just fucking
put on the shoes and run. I didn't mention my dad got me shoes for Christmas. Now, it was probably prompted by the sisters or or mother or Angela, but he got me the running shoes, and I was like, it's like getting the Man United kit. You think you're Ronaldo when you get a Man United kit for Christmas. I got the running shoes. I was like, I suppose I better start running now.
Okay.
So I just got the running shoes and said, running challenge. Went off my first 5K. My first 5K was like 32 minutes, and it was awful hard, just because I wasn't used to it.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I would have ran that marathon on day one with no training easily.
No.
I would have nearly died doing. Well, I won't say nearly died. It would have been extremely tough doing it. But it's like, run this marathon now, or else something terrible will happen. I would have done it. He would have done it. He can do it. When the war broke out with Ukraine, I heard about them saying refugees who had walked 50 miles, so older women who had walked 50 miles in the last day or two. They're thinking, they're old women fleeing conflict. I'm a young, fit man, and I'm afraid to run a fucking 20k. The daftness of it. Plus the idea that I love the Navy SEALs. I'm obsessed with the Navy SEALs. I'm like, any Navy SEAL podcast or who's being interviewed, I always try and listen to them. The most advanced soldiers that have ever lived. I had this interest that could I actually do those survival challenges? Like the one Park O'Hora did, Swanee. Like, I was like, could I do that? Could I run that far? Because they were maybe doing 20Ks and stuff like that. And I was like, I can swim. I can. So what I did this year, I was like, I want to swim more. So I went into the sea a good few times. Jumped into the sea in the Mediterranean, but also the cold water a few times in Mayo. I've done a lot more calisthenics. So like, calisthenics are a big part of military style training. Loads of press ups, loads of chin ups, loads of, So I'm doing loads of gymnastics, which is just like an advanced version of calisthenics and running. So can I swim? Can I run? Can I do bodyweight training like a bit of a freak? That was my goal of training this year, and that's what I've just set out to do. Is like, okay, I can do the bodybuilding stuff. I can lift this much weight. I can bench 130. I can squat 170. But can I actually fucking be a soldier?
Can I be hard to kill?
Hard to kill, yeah. And it's not that I think I would be a Navy SEAL, but I definitely aspire to being as fit as one of them, and I think I've achieved that.
Yeah, look, to be honest,
Cameron Haynes as well.
As I've gotten a little older and moved away from like competitive bodybuilding and stuff, it's funny. I think a lot of people, you see this happening in fitness. They move away from the bodybuilding was like what they were initially kind of interested in, but then they're like, what good is this for all this muscle and this look if I can't fucking move? If I can't run like 5k in 20 minutes or whatever, if I can't run a 10k and then come back and like be able to do like 100 push-ups and like fucking 50 chin-ups or whatever the case is. And I'm even moving a little bit towards, I suppose, seeing you do the running as well inspired me a bit more to do a bit more running. Like not necessarily, I haven't undergone a challenge or anything, but just to be like, not to just look like, great with your clothes off, but to actually be able to function.
And I was influenced by a lot of the influencers. So many people watching this will have bought clothes because their favourite influencer. They'll wear certain football boots because their favourite footballer wears them. They'll eat this protein supplement or whatever because someone did. Like, I was influenced by a lot of the people I follow, by the podcasts I listen to, and one of them, I'm wearing this t-shirt now with Adi Gillespie. How long have I been talking about him? I'd say since I opened the gym, maybe 10 years, 8 years anyway. And like, he can do the muscle ups, the handstand push-ups, he can do the marathon running. Lately he did the photo shoots in the bodybuilding style, aesthetic look. That's what fitness has turned back into for me, because I started off doing running, fitness, just being a better athlete, went into more bodybuilding, glad I did, and then went back into this less about peaking. Oh, you have to peak for this special day, this special event, like the county final, or peak for the bodybuilding show, and being just like, if I had to do anything right now, just would I be fit enough and strong enough and mobile enough to do it, bulletproof enough to do it? And I think that's a realistic goal for everyone. They might not be able to peak and make a professional soccer team, professional rugby team, try out for the Olympics, gymnastics team, but can they get to a proficient level that's very, very impressive at all these different running weights, good and lean and strong and healthy, can they get to a proficient level at all of them? Of course they can. Incremental gains over time, they could end up doing things with their physique and having certain physical accomplishments that were impossible, or they thought they were impossible.
Do you think did the bodybuilding background and the preps that you did help with the running, with the with the mental side?
Everything has helped each other.
Okay.
So like the football background from me being very young and just playing GA, that really helped my interest in fitness and my love in fitness and things like that. Then that helped me go into the strength training. And strength training for GA helped me get into bodybuilding, and the bodybuilding helped me get into they've all complemented each other. And I think so many times in the fitness industry we can be like, oh, runners shouldn't be like bodybuilders shouldn't be like powerlifters shouldn't be like gymnasts. I think that's bullshit, and it's so overplayed. That's, if you're trying to be fit, strong, healthy, look at the Navy SEALs. They can run, they can fight, they can swim. That's what you're trying to be like. Maybe a good place to start would be like flexibility and bodyweight training, running, and then like powerlifting style, bodybuilding, power building style. Can you do those three things? If you can do those three things, you're in top shape. You're talking about the top 5-10% of men alive. So to do those three things, and then you want to add swimming on top of it, or you want to add like gymnastics on top of it,
or martial art,
or a martial art on top of it. Then you come to this, like, you turn into a complete machine. You're like just part of the physical elite, even though you're just adding skills together rather than getting world class at gymnastics or world class at running. You're physically elite just by being very, very proficient at numerous different things.
Yeah,
it's probably a good place to start wrapping up. So the last thing I'd like to talk to you about is, to do any of these things, you have to, as the Navy SEALs say, or it might be the Marines, but you have to embrace the suck, the pain that comes with diving, the pain that comes with fucking your wrists when you're trying to learn handstands, or your legs when you're doing your first leg day, your first set of Bulgarian split squats, the pain that comes with, you don't want to get up and do this run, but you know it's a crucial day to get done if you're trying to achieve this goal of running a marathon. How does somebody listening to this get through that pain and those doubts in their head, or that weakness in their head that fell in their head to them, oh no, you're not strong enough to do this. How do you get past that and just get it done?
Well, from my own experience, a lot of the time for me it was having like a why, like a very important like
Simon Sinek job.
Yes,
me and you read that book quite early.
Yeah. It's having a why, and then in those times of doubt, when you don't want to get up or you don't want to do the leg session or whatever, if the why is strong enough, it should. For me anyway, it was always like, okay, no, I'm going to do this because why am I doing this? And I'd also bring myself back to, what was my why.
What was your why?
My why was I wanted to be like a winner. I wanted to be a champion when it was doing the bodybuilding. So having failed twice previously in the 2 previous years, what kept driving me on even from the first year to the second to the third year was just my why was that I wanted to be a winner. I wanted to be a champion. And that was for me what got me through a lot of the hardship, just having that why.
And looking back, do you think that was the right reason, the right motivation to be that driven?
I don't think I could have done it any other way, to be honest.
Okay.
If I was the why to be, like, no doubt I was trying to be a better version of my physical self each year from show to show, but like if that was just my why, I don't think that would have been strong enough for me. Having something to accomplish and to win and to be a champion, for me, I felt like it was strong enough. You could question, was that the right motivation? But like when you want to achieve something great, sometimes like
Doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be
clean cut.
No, and like, you know, this idea as well of like, you know, doing that, like I was not fucking living a balanced life doing that at all. There was nothing balanced about what I was doing.
Yes. And like a huge sense of motivation for me, good or bad, right or wrong, was silencing doubters, or well, I knew there was certain people who wished me bad, who didn't want me to do well for one reason or another, and to prove them wrong, or to prove that is a brilliant driving force. It's taking that negative energy and using it as a positive source of motivation to get something physical done. One of my first coaches, Andrew, has got me to write down everyone who I didn't like as a source. I still have it written in my old iPad as a source of motivation. Whenever he was like, if you're trying to get through a tough set of squats, it's not the people you love, it's not your mother and father, it's not your kids, it's not your like nieces and nephews that are going to get you that through. But you think of someone you hate, they'll get you through it. And they've got me through many's a set of squats and many's a hard run.
So was your motivation the naysayers?
It definitely wasn't my primary motivation. Your primary motivation is when you want to do something good, you want to give back to society, you want to achieve something good for yourself, but they can be a very useful tool. I think it'd be wrong not to bring up how useful a tool those doubters or those naysayers or those people who don't wish you well, how useful that can be if you use it in the right way. Because a lot of people do the opposite. They use that as an excuse to stop them. Oh, he got in my way trying to achieve this, or she got in my way, or she tried to sabotage this, or he tried to sabotage this. Instead of saying, okay, they tried to sabotage me, good, I'm going to do it anyway. Good way of getting through pain. So I think we'll wrap up with that.
Yeah.
It's been real. I really enjoyed that one.
Me too. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And I have no doubt it's going to be very, very helpful to people looking for some clues on how to achieve something very, very tough physically. From two people who have the scars to prove it in terms of the completion of the ultramarathon and the Irish title in bodybuilding. They're quite different, but I'm sure that there's takeaways no matter what the physical challenge is in both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. The physical challenges were quite different, but I think we both, the mental was quite similar though. We both went through, you know, the similar mental aspects. And if people can take that from it, that, you know, it's not necessarily the physical is only one element, and you know, you made the point that we are capable of way more than we think physically, but also just to realize that mentally we're also capable of a lot more than we think, and hopefully they can take something from this.
Okay, that's a great place to wrap up.
Yeah,
it's been real.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure. We'll have you again sometime.